波、お出かけしよう。
Welcome everybody to another episode of Keeping It Real with Kit. Today we have Glenn Marc, CEO of Nibble. If you don't know him, journalist, worked for the Plug magazine, and other fun stuff that we will speak along the course of this interview. So, Glenn, tell us about yourself.
Hello. I always laugh at that question. I feel like
It's a very broad question, you know?
It's also just like over the course of my career, it's like the answers always change over time. But yeah, I mean, I guess for a lot of people, I think the simplest way is just obviously CEO of Nibble Esports, Nibble Africa. That's obviously a big part of what I do. But then also, I've been an award-winning creative director, working in the advertising industry across a number of massive brands and small brands. It's been a fun time. That's been my sort of bread and butter, my 9 to 5. And then, as you mentioned, I was a journalist. Covered a lot of gaming stories, a lot of investigative pieces around both local issues around ZA South Africa, but then also internationally as well. Yeah, that's kind of me. I am an absolute wannabe try-hard gamer. Let's throw that in there as a final round. But yeah, I mean, very much a creative. That's what I love, and I love to do. Storytelling is a massive thing for me, and it's been a very big part of my entire career, both in gaming and outside of it. So yeah, that's me.
So, as you say, you're like a very creative person and you like enjoy storytelling and such. Has that been something like from a young age, or it's something you developed as you got older when you like got into this field?
So, firstly, I've watched these Keeping It Real talks, but I've also like done it just watching it, not going like, oh, I might be on this. And now, I have not been asked that question before, like ever in like, my entire
we don't ask the generic questions, we're trying to make it cooler than usual.
You know what I should have done? I should have told you, send me questions beforehand so that I could.
That's actually what. So I had a whole conversation yesterday with Sipe because yesterday we had a team meeting with Aiden and stuff like to discuss the new stuff in Nibble. Obviously Sipe does podcasting like IRL and stuff. So Aiden told me to like contact him because he was sick and stuff, so he couldn't join me. So he gave me like a whole 45 minutes call yesterday, going like in depth, and he was like, nah, you don't ask these stupid questions, you go in like deep, you get people comfortable with you and you like attack them, like you want to go like as hard hitting as possible. And so I was like, okay,
to answer the question around storytelling, it's been a big part of my life since I can remember, since I could even know how to think. I used to devour books back in the days. During like high school, I'd literally go during break time. I'd go somewhere quiet just to sit and read. Sometimes in the library, sometimes whatever. Like I just love stories and just everything around that. But then on top of that, like even stuff like just news. Like I'm on the internet all the time, just consuming information all the time. So it's just a part of who I am. I'm just a very curious person. So bring it back to storytelling, it's just one of these things where, you have the best kind of information when you can get it from a bunch of different sources and different people with different perspectives, and you know what I mean? And so that idea of like creating platforms or working around or being involved or around platforms that allow people from different backgrounds to just have conversations in specific fields and things has always been fascinating to me. I think it's why advertising was something I loved so much from the get-go. It's like you work with different brands all of the time, and all these brands have their own stories, their own ethos and culture and personality, and you want to be able to tell the stories of those brands to a consumer that might resonate with it. So yeah, it's been a thing since I was a kid. I mean, I guess also gaming was probably a big part of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can totally agree with the storytelling part, because ever since I started this, I like having more and more fun talking to new people. Like I wouldn't say I'm not a social person, but the amount of people I've dealt with over the years, I do not like to like talk to new people because it's so tiring and taxing. But luckily, like all the people I've got here have been super chilled, and it's actually a fun experience to talk to them.
I've been loving watching you actually just doing this, because I think even for my thing where I've been doing my kind of podcast, and then that's obviously just more around me and not necessarily sort of interviewing people per se, but I think when you find that content, like that kind of content that you love to do, it's just like, I mean, it's just watching fun. You doing this, it's I just seen you.
I never thought I'd have this much fun.
Yeah, and then even you pitch it first, you're like, this is what I want to do. This is how it's gonna work. You've just like, it's been cool to see you run. Yeah, man. I think it's people will be surprised by what they might find enjoyable in terms of content creation when they step back from the what people kind of know them as.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
for a
like
lot
from
of
your
us,
you
it's
step
kind
out of
of
your comfort zone. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean. A lot of people come, especially a lot of people you'll talk to and things. It's gamers, and so
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like, "Yo, we're gamers," but we're more than gamers. But that's not often
Mm-hmm.
discussed. And so I
Yeah, yeah.
think the stuff like
It's
this,
good
and
to do
so yeah,
something
seeing
else.
you
Yeah.
doing this is just it's so
As I
cool.
was speaking to, I think I was speaking to Rishka the other day on the interview. Like
Mm,
gaming in South Africa is so saturated now. Like even Twitch and stuff. To be successful, you need more. You need to be more than just a good gamer. You need to have like a good personality and do something different. So that's why, like, I always say, I tell people, entertainment is like the future of Twitch. It's not gaming anymore. So that's why
yeah,
even when you approached me to join Nibble, you told me we're not a gaming organization. We're a lifestyle organization, and that's like the forward thinking
yeah.
we need.
It's a funny thing because I think I've briefly kind of spoken about sort of my views on esports, and obviously it's an interesting space to talk about it coming from being an owner of an esports organization or semi esports
Mhm.
organization. Yeah, I always have to think you'll start to see when I'm like thinking about what I can say and should say because of
Mhm.
these topics are really difficult to have conversations about, and I think the reason or have honest chats about them.
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's always a lot that's involved with it, and there's a lot of different people's perspectives, and different groups of different stakeholders that have a perspective on like esports. Esports is a lot further away than what it pretended to be, and that statement is a fact in terms of globally. And so what you're noticing in the global world of esports right now is a lot of things are regressing. Orgs are being shut down or closed. Sponsors are pulling out. There's just been a huge retraction, and I consider more of a recalibration of the esports industry globally. So then when you bring that back to South Africa, it's even worse.
worse. Yes.
You, well, just in general, I just think
Yeah,
like
yeah,
as a country, we're just so much smaller, and Africa as a whole, as a continent, has a lot of issues as well. But yeah, esports is not. It's a very difficult space to be in
for
and to
sure.
operate in,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of those results are starting to come to the fore. And so yeah, obviously with Nibble, I'll admit I don't think it was a very popular decision at the time with me when I kind of was like, we need to diversify a lot of what we're doing because esports can't be just the core focus of what we do. Unfortunately, again, there's no real sustainable
Yeah, for sure.
industry and a space there when you're trying to actually build something long term. So yeah, it's an interesting chat. I think
Hmm.
we'll see how things go, but I'm excited about the model that we've come with and the approach that we have around operating in the
Yeah.
gaming
I
esports
think
space.
it's you're one of the very few orgs that actually do stuff differently because you're not focused on like one central thing. So it gives you more options to broaden your horizons and stuff. So you're not limited to just esports. And that's where
Exactly.
a lot of orgs like shoot themselves in the foot because they like have to do this thing and then they realize they can't get sponsors and they can't send their teams abroad and then like the whole thing crumbles and then
But
people give you
having
shit
said
for
it,
that.
I definitely, one of the things I'm happy to be open about around mistakes is like there was that mistake to avoid in terms of not fully investing in esports and making
Yeah.
it our entire core offering because yeah, it's a space when you want to compete at the top level in ZA, you have to be spending at the level of the
Oh, for
top level
sure. You got to be
because
spending a
that's
lot.
just
Yeah.
the industry. Our mistake, I think, and one of the things that I can admit to was on the other side of that, I wanted to diversify too much.
Okay.
And so on the other side, I try to do a whole bunch of different things all at once, outside of just the esports space, which obviously was great, but I think, I try to do too much at once. And so that's been, one of the big learning lessons as well within the org and just, learning to just run it and build a business and build the right team and build the right environment was don't try to do everything at once. I
Mhm.
mean, Nibble, I mean, the old pitch deck used to have like 10 different offerings that we did
Damn.
because we wanted to really kind of do everything. And I wanted to say we can do so much more than esports, but that brings its own problems where you try to do too much, grow too fast, and
Yeah.
then you have to, deal with that too. But
I think
yeah,
it's a bit
I'm
natural though.
happy
It's
with
like a natural response to want to do so many things, especially if you know it's different. And so it's not like unnatural for someone to think that way. Obviously, in this country, it's a bit limited to what you can do, but it's the right mindset, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
look, I want to be open minded always
oh yeah,
around
for sure. You
everything
have
and
to.
anything I do. But yeah, just it's nice to be smarter. Having hindsight is always a cool way to
Like you might want to do this, but then it's going
be
to cost you
smarter.
more than you
Yeah,
benefit, you know? So
yeah.
that's like rate of investment wise is very bad. I feel that's a lot of new people coming into the esports scene don't understand like rate of investment. They just think like maybe, I'm dropping like 20 kills in like Call of Duty and this org needs to sponsor me. It's a very common misconception, and especially amongst the young kids. And a lot of people don't talk about this because obviously, like when I tell people like I teach games for a living, they be like, oh, that's cool, I'm like good at this game, can I do it too? Then I need to like explain to them in depth of how hard it is to actually do this, like especially in a saturated thing like Call of Duty or FPS in general. The main thing I faced when I became a coach, not a single person in South Africa wanted to learn, because people in South Africa are egotistical and they do not want to learn from other people. Like this is a fact. So I actually had to look abroad, but luckily like Magic is very big overseas, so it's fine with that. But to this day, I literally have 0 South African students.
You are right. I will say that I do think the ZA scene gets quite fixated and very close-minded around what are the possible opportunities. As I said, I had a lot of backlash for trying to do more than just talk about esports as an org, because everyone's like, well, then what
are you doing?
What is this about? Yeah, do you know what I mean?
This is
And
not
I
games. We
understand
don't
that.
want this shit.
Yeah, I understand why people, didn't really always grasp it or get what I was trying to do and what the thinking was around Nibble. But yeah, I think if we were a bit more open-minded, maybe even looked at like neighbors down the road as opposed to looking at the West all the time. It's like there's some really great projects happening on the African continent. Space just things that are being done, like in Kenya, and Ghana as well, Nigeria as well. Like there's a lot of amazing things happening, and I think if we looked at that, we'd be a little bit more open-minded and figure out there's a lot of ways to get to whatever the definition of success is for the industry.
So I've seen, obviously, with hype about Prime and all that shit, and you clearly did a review on it, you and Ruthie. So give me your to people who haven't seen the video, or what's your honest opinion on Prime?
No, honestly, like it's too sweet. Like it's super sweet. Like it's very, very, very sweet. But what I did around it was like I'm not the target audience for Prime.
Yeah, for sure.
Even in the video I did, I think I said it was Jake, and it's actually not Jake Paul. It's
Logan Paul. Yeah, I didn't follow that shit either.
Again, I don't. Again, that's why I was like, I said it from the get go. I don't care about Prime, and I'm not the audience for it or the target audience. But what I loved was how Checkers brought it to South Africa.
Checkers were very smart on that. That was a very big move on Checkers.
And it was so funny because obviously the thumbnail, the image that I have, or whatever, it's like obviously me holding the 2 Prime drinks that we did. And so people were like, oh my gosh, he jumped on the bandwagon, and
you gotta do it.
No, but my thing was like, did you even listen to what I just said?
Yeah.
I just went, I don't care about Prime. I just want to, and the video was around just how great the concept was and how well executed Checkers did it.
They marketed it super well.
Man, and Checkers falls under the ShopRite group, right? So, and not everybody knows that. Like, Checkers is actually under the ShopRite group, and ShopRite has actually been a huge catalyst in like innovative tech and how they utilize it in the digital space across retail. They've done incredible things, which is obviously why with Checkers 6060 and
that was really big for the app as well to get all those hits.
I can't remember the last time. I mean, Ren and I were talking like we barely go to the shops anymore when it comes for groceries because it's like why just order it all and get the specials that are there. So I just was like, it's a great marketing campaign, and that's really what I discussed about it. Marvel, again, I think going to like the card game thing, and I remember when we were discussing, right, I even said to you, I was like, look, Marvel Snap, I genuinely believe is going to be one of the next big things.
I agree.
And the reason for it is because it did the same thing that League has done, the same thing Fortnite did in Battle Royale. It took a great concept, card games. I'm not, obviously Marvel's never been the first. There are ones even before, Magic the Gathering, but, I don't know.
This is more accessible, because of the Marvel IP. So that was like the
that obviously, that's an unfair advantage it definitely has, and I'm not going to pretend that's not a big
for sure.
For that. People know the characters. There's like entire series, never mind trilogies and like a whole universe is built around these characters. So there's love, but as a gameplay, it's just really simple. But Marvel Snap's done that same thing of making something like an esports thing like accessible.
So speaking about that, as you said about the Marvel Snap, so my one friend for a very long time religiously only played Tekken. Like he's only a fighting game player. I tell him play card games. He's like, nah, fuck this. I don't play that shit. Marvel Snap comes out. this guy has been playing this game almost every single day. He literally won the Nibble tournament the other day.
Is he one of the winners? I was
Yes,
actually going to ask about.
I was
no way.
so he's a console player, right? And he was playing Marvel Snap on his phone. He literally upgraded his PC, bought a new screen to play Marvel Snap. Everyone in our like local fighting game groups are like so shook. Like this guy only played fighting games, and this guy is so deep into Marvel Snap. So that's why I say like Marvel Snap like literally took the world by storm. Like I'm not gonna say it's the best card game ever. It's very simple. It's very easy to get into. It's not the best for sure, but on the fun and accessibility side, it's definitely a 10 out of 10. Like nobody can fault it on that.
100%. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest issues that esports doesn't still realize. It's like you have to use accessible things.
Yes.
Right? CS:GO is a game that most people, when you talk about as a first-person shooter, it's not thrown up there by the average everyday
yeah, for
being,
sure.
right? That I'm not talking about just in the gaming community. In general, no one really understands. Counter-Strike is very rarely. I think maybe over the last year or two is when it started to actually break that mainstream appeal that COD, League of Legends, Dota to a degree has had. Like CS:GO wasn't that, but then as people started to like watch it, they'd be like, "Huh, that's actually kind of a really easy game to follow." When esports started to blow up a lot more over the last couple of last 5-10 years, people were like, "Oh, so there's bad guys, good guys, and then there's a bomb, and then that's basically it. There's two places to go. It's so easy."
From an outside perspective, all these things look very confusing and overwhelming. But like once you get in, you learn to appreciate it more. Okay, so obviously you've worked with like tons of famous people across your millions of jobs. Which would you say? Which would you say has? Which person, or maybe more than one person, had the biggest impact on you and your career? That's also a very broad question.
Some of my questions I've literally never in my life been asked before. Yeah, there were a hell of a lot of people that I've worked with over the course of my career. But in terms of like famous people, I mean I have to, the easiest one to me to put out would definitely obviously just be Nasty C. Just that's someone that we've worked with recently from a Nibble perspective, and then I've been working with them directly. In terms of building up the gaming space, he is so passionate about what he's doing. Him and his team, and one of the guys, Yanda as well. They're both just really passionate and genuine, and they're keen to kind of put in the work. I think a lot of big people, whenever they come into any industry, they just kind of I'm big, I'm famous, like let me just do this and help. I'm doing everybody a favor. Whereas Nasty C and the team, like they don't think like that. Iverson Gaming is very big on just building the scene and being a part of it, and it's been amazing working with them. So from that aspect, that's one of the most recent things. Prior to that, I would probably say there was someone I'd worked with back at AB and Bev, and definitely not one of the most famous people. Actually, I would probably say it would have been Mante Khibane. Actually, that's actually what I'm going to go with. So Mante Khibane is not someone a lot of people might really know, but she's an incredible performer. So she's a music artist, but she's a fashion designer. She does a bunch of different things, but she's just really passionate about her craft. And I worked with her back at Flying Fish. I designed their event, one of the events when Masego and JID came down back in Joburg. I was working at a company called Koi Creative, and I was the lead creative there, and I had a creative director above me, Warren, who was, had really taught me a lot of what I know in events, just about everything really at the beginning of my career. Working with Mante was amazing because a lot of artists, even international, they come on stage, they do their rehearsals, they dry runs, and then they leave. But it's very half-assed. It's kind of like a they kind of
I just want to be there, do it because they're there.
They just want to just get it over and done with so they can leave and then move on, right? I remember now, this is what I'd been used to experiencing with a lot of, massive artists, like all of the big ones and locally and everything. That's just the way it goes. And in a way, I understood it. But Mante came in and was like, rehearsal. I'm like, I'm working and I want to make sure it's perfect. She had every single dancer come on stage. She had the full cast come to the rehearsal and actually perform the songs with the choreography, with the dancing, with everything. It was a full performance that Mante gave. I was blown away by that because what I'd seen of people that I've made that are huge, that are big, it's like, for them it becomes just a job. It's just every day. It's just
get it over and done with.
Call it in and whatever. And again, not to, criticize anybody that I've worked with before or anything like that. Like, I'm just saying I've seen people, practice and things, but it's again just a chore. it was the first time I'd seen someone come in and bring in high level performance, and really like go all in for a rehearsal, and then just go, all right, cool, like now we're done, we can leave. So for me, that was really impactful because it just showed someone who's at the top of their game. I mean, Mante was, is internationally renowned. Flown all over the world to perform, and a great ambassador for South Africa in a lot of ways. To see someone at that level
It was such a good
come in
work
for a
ethic
little
as well.
rehearsal with me and just put in graft, like greet me as well. Like, and a lot of these artists as well, like a lot of these big people I've worked with, just greeted me and like just were a lot more personable than I expected. That then you used to seeing. I think people kind of hit fame, especially in South Africa, it's a thing, and at various levels. I mean,
The
you see it
cloud
even in
gets
the
to them.
content creator space. Yeah, people see a little bit of success and think they
Oh yeah,
can
you
they
definitely
can
can see that in the local content creator space as well.
yeah, you know what I mean? And
Um,
it's the thing, and it's not just, even gaming. I'm talking just in general, because again, I don't want to get into all that. Jess is passionate. Jess has always been
extremely.
keen. Jess is one of the first people to even just show Nibble love and things like the wallpaper joke that we have there. I'm like, that's Jess never had to do any of those things, and the support and the shout outs and all those things, and having it
She's
on
very
posts
supportive
and
of
things.
people who she thinks is good and deserving. So that's why I
Yeah,
also
I'm saying
like
like Jess is a
hold her
supportive
in very
person
high
in
regard.
general.
Yeah, she's like very genuine. Like nobody can say otherwise. I think I've spoken about Jess in every single podcast. Everyone has good things to say.
There's your thing now. From here on out,
Every yeah, we go.
that's
Do
the
you know
Jess
Jess
must come
Hines?
up at
Yes.
every. No, I mean I even mentioned Jess
Yeah.
in my podcast, and one of the things when she was talking about being a content creator and the how difficult it is when you have to be like almost a slave to the
Yeah.
algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I think those are the kind of people you look out for, especially
Yes.
at the beginning, and then you just keep doing your hard work and you put in your shift and you put in your time, and when those rewards come out, and I think Nibble is finally, after a while, it's been a
Mhm.
long time, it's been a difficult time at times, it's been I could speak for years around just the really really hard moments, the soul crushing moments that have been a part of the growth of Nibble on the journey.
The
But
character
it's like,
development you have to go through it.
man, it's lessons I never wanted to be taught. I'm like, I don't want to. Why am I still in school? I left. I don't want to. I didn't ask to be taught life lessons. But yeah, I think once you get to the rewards of the work that you've put in start to show, and I think that's kind of when Nibble's starting to now get into that space, and obviously a lot of kind of what's coming up and things that will be announced over time, but it's when once you finally hit that space you believed you were going to get to, it's just like, yeah, get your props, but be careful, like people will start to come back and or be
uh,
like, yo, what's up, like,
Fuck you.
hey, yeah, I
I'm
saw
not
your mail
so.
now, like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm ready, I've got time. And it's just like, and you've it's the people that have been there with you from the beginning, the people that have been there for the right reasons, and that's just across the board. It's not even just like a gaming specific thing. I think it's just passionate people, and so that's why the two people I mentioned in terms of two famous people are ironic, are deliberately the two people that I've seen have the most passion for their craft, even though they've been at the top of the game.
As a CEO and someone well versed in all the fields you've been in, like design, project leaders, art directors, and all that stuff, what would you say to somebody else who's possibly wants to follow the same path as you? What advice would you give to them? Like before we close it out, like
Get out
just
whilst you still can.
cut
No,
it there.
I think one of the hardest things for me, and one of, I think, my biggest pain points that I wish, I mean, there's a lot of obviously things I obviously have learned over this time and things, but be really deliberate about how you navigate the industry. I'm going to bring it like that. And it sounds a bit generic and vague, but I'm being deliberately so in that sense. I think there's no one answer fits everybody. Everybody's
Yeah.
in different things. Everybody operates differently. Everybody, like, for example, like, I'm not the kind of person that wants to work with a ton of different strangers that I don't know. I like to go through referrals or go through, and that's how I've built my client base. And I try to keep it a bit in that space because I don't like to kind of work with random people that I don't really know as a personal freelancer. But obviously, that's not for everybody. Some people love just meeting with a bunch of different people. Some people actively don't like to work with people they know. And so there's, so it's not about those things. I think just be deliberate about it. One of the first example, one of the more practical explanations of that is like when it comes to how you charge as a creative, right? Or whether it's what you're asking as a salary for a 9 to 5 versus doing it as a freelancer. Like, yeah, know your worth, and everybody always starts a conversation there and leaves it there, and it's just such a misleading angle to approach it in, because we all know our worth. But if anybody in the creative industry tells you that anybody here gets paid their worth, like
Nah.
it's just factually
Yeah.
not true.
That's just
We
lies.
all, you know what I mean? We all know
Everyone's
it, and
underpaid in that industry.
even I, and that's also what I hate, is like people that are well established are pretending that like they
A
only
fair
ever get
amount.
paid
Yeah,
exactly what
exactly.
they want. But I'm like, I know firsthand that's not true. Like, people are still doing things for free. Some of the biggest creators still do things for free. Like, so when I say be deliberate, it's like, think about why you do something and not why because someone said so. A lot of people either just emulate what they see, or they just copy what they, someone else's a process and progress and journey to where they are, and then wonder why it doesn't work for
Work
them.
with the MIP.
And so I think that's why, I don't want to keep like I don't want to give like just a thing that helped me specifically only,
Yeah.
because, but I think it's one thing that I still to this day I'm actively learning, is how to be a lot more deliberate in how I engage with people in a business space, in a creative space. Just be deliberate, because then that way I have the right expectations when I engage and work with people. They have the right expectations with me, and everything's, better communication when you're just really deliberate about, why you do what you do.
Okay, well, I think we took enough of your time.
I had so much fun, man.
Yeah,
Thank you
pretty
so
cool.
much. Like, this is actually, I realize also, like, when I do these things, it's like, the
Yeah,
time just sort of
I
flies
feel like
by.
I
But
feel like we spoke like half an hour on League of Legends when we do not supposed to. But hey, who cares?
it's your show. You get to
Yeah,
do what
yeah,
you want.
exactly.
Um,
So yeah, thank you for joining.
Battle royales are where you're third partied by 5 parties. All right. It's called a battle orgy. And
Yeah.
that is what I want everybody to accept. We're all there getting fucked with our mates.
Good times.